They say the greater the love, the greater the fool. That's me. A fool in love. My name is Yemi and this is my love story. My wife Amoka and I met in university. I was 3 classes ahead of her. Amoka was everything perfect, very pretty, calm and calculated, meek and gentle, and to top it all, she was a virgin. We both came from strong Catholic backgrounds and were from the eastern part of Nigeria. I approached her with the purest intentions, but she told me she was talking to another guy, though it was nothing serious. She asked me to be patient if I was serious about her. At that point, nothing else mattered to me but her. She started dating the other guy, and I was hurt, but I believed in my heart that she would be mine someday. I never stopped taking care of her and never dated anyone else. I waited patiently for 2 years, during which I focused on building myself to prove that I could take care of her. I started working at a bank, got my first car, and rented a very nice apartment. Things got a lot better, and because we were just friends at the time, Amoka knew all my successes. Eventually, she broke things off with the other guy. He was really hurt and persistently begged her, which made me feel pity for him. But on the other hand, I felt that was the universe's way of blessing me after waiting for so long. A few months after her breakup, we started dating. I practically worshipped the ground she walked on. I went all out for her, assisted with her final year bills, sponsored her for some professional courses, got her her first job and apartment, and placed her on a monthly allowance. I raised her standards so high that they were unreachable to other guys. I made sure she didn't spend a penny on anything, and if she eventually did, I would pay her back, sometimes with a bonus. I was crazily in love with her. At this point, I had no doubt she was mine for life. Seeing her happy was all I lived for. I started making plans for us to relocate to Canada, but every attempt proved abortive. I decided we should go through the United Kingdom instead. I applied for a master's program and was approved. Before moving to the UK, we had our court wedding, agreeing to have a full ceremony once we got settled. 2 months after relocating to the UK, I processed her documents to join me as my dependent. I wanted it that way because I never wanted her to go through any form of stress. Before her arrival, I got an apartment for us and secured a work-from-home job for her while I worked nights at a care home. I practically worked 6 nights a week. I didn't care about the 20-hour limit for students because I knew I was leaving the country immediately after my studies. I worked to pay the bills, rent, upkeep, my school fees, etc., while her earnings were for herself alone. I made sure she was comfortable, bought everything she needed, and whenever she bought anything for herself, I always refunded her. A couple of months later, she started complaining about how stressful her work-from-home job was, which led me to secure a job with the NHS for her after many trials. She was excited, and that made me really happy. I always deleted any rejection emails from the jobs she previously applied for before she could see them because I never wanted to see her sad in any way. At some point, things got rough for me. My school fees deadline was approaching, so I decided to ask my wife for assistance and promised to refund her once I got paid that month. The response she gave made me rethink a lot. I was currently studying for my master's in cybersecurity, and she knew how good I was. I could ethically hack into most things, but I promised myself that I would never hack into her devices because I trusted her completely. So, I asked my wife, Amoka, for any amount she could afford, but she swore she didn't have a penny. I was surprised because I never let her pay for anything, and whenever she did, I always refunded her, sometimes with extra. I decided to check how much she had, and to my shock, my wife had over £7,000. I wondered how she could be so heartless towards me. Before now, whenever I tried to get close to her, like with foreplay or sex, she would tell me she was not ready and wanted to wait until our wedding night. Whenever I explained that we were legally married, she would start crying, and I hated seeing her cry. If I tried to kiss her, she would act irritated and blame it on stress. Her attitude was gradually changing. Initially, I attributed it to work stress, but after I found out how much money she had, I was convinced she was making excuses. I knew she owed me nothing, as everything I did for her was out of my free will. I struggled to pay my fees, and in no time, I graduated. However, my wife didn't attend my graduation, claiming she had a professional exam and could not attend. Amoka, my wife, became unbearable. Whenever I tried to have conversations with her, she would pick fights. I decided to check her phone for the first time and got the shock of my life. She was sleeping with other guys from our workplace. This was the lady I married as a virgin. The messages from the guys described how sweet she tasted, how they couldn't wait to have her again, how fun it was driving her home, and how she should dump me for caging her. Some were promising her marriage, and one suggested that once she got her calls from the NHS, she should dump me and get a better life. I was devastated. I confronted her, but she wasn't remorseful and never said a word. She didn't stop cheating either. During this time, I had applied for a master's program in nursing for her in the United States and 2 other health-related master's programs she wanted in Canada as we had previously planned. Fortunately, all 3 admissions were accepted, and the only thing left was for me to make the deposit. I also got a good job in Canada and submitted documents to the Canadian Embassy proving we were legally married, but she was unaware of these plans. I was contemplating whether or not to pay her school deposits. I was willing to forgive her if she was remorseful or apologetic. Due to the constant arguments, I decided to give her space and went to visit my aunt in England for a few days. When I got back, there were wrapped gifts in the house. I felt my wife had changed. I approached her and asked whose gift that was. Amoka said nonchalantly that it was for a friend. My wife had never gotten me anything ever. I was depressed because my wife was my entire life. I prayed and cried silently, but to no avail. I got tired of everything. My wife would make long calls with different men until midnight and totally ignore me. I was forced to move out of the house. I wanted to tell her all my plans so badly, but she never gave me the time. After moving out, I reached out to her and asked if we were still on the same page about staying married. I sent her a message stating she should reply if she was still with me in this marriage or not reply if she wasn't, and the condition was to get back to me in 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, there was no response. I called to let her know I had acknowledged her silence as her decision. I filed for a divorce and sent her a copy. She didn't respond. I sent documents to the Canadian Embassy to prove we were no longer together, and her name was removed immediately. I finally relocated to Canada. A few weeks later, she sent messages asking about our sponsorship update. I told her I knew nothing about that, and she replied that she would sort herself out. A few months later, she went back to Nigeria because her visa had expired. I had to open up to our families about my intention to divorce her because they had the right to know, especially since Amoka has returned back to Nigeria. Her family kept apologizing for how their daughter behaved and they begged me not to go through with it, but she was still not remorseful. My mind was already made up. For me, Amoka was no longer my wife. All I was waiting for was her signature on those divorce papers, but she won't let me have it. However, I was determined to move on without her. She continued living the lavish lifestyle I brought her into, but unfortunately I was no longer there to sponsor that lifestyle for her. She tried to secure a good job, but all to no avail. After 3 months in Nigeria, her eyes opened to reality. She knew she was broke and none of her boyfriends in the UK would help her. Life in Nigeria started becoming hard and all the men she was cheating on me with stopped communicating with her. They literally became strangers to each other. She realized she was completely alone and broke. A situation she has never experienced in a very long time. At this point she knew the only person who truly loved and cared for her unconditionally was me, her husband, and she knew she had to reach out.